All right, we are live with another instant-ish reaction podcast. We just watched Tom Brady do Tom Brady things and come back against the Rams to win in a last-second touchdown. But we're here to talk about the Patriots and the Colts. Patriots get a 26-3 win over the Colts, and offensively, it says dominate down here. Offensively, they did not dominate. Defensively, they were just disgusting today. They absolutely just battered the Colts and completely shut them down.
I think if you have one takeaway from today's game, it's that the Colts offensive line is probably the worst in football, if not one of the worst in football. Because the Patriots defense got 9 sacks today, 2 guys with 3 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is they had 2 sacks on the first drive. One of them got negated by penalty because Iguale got his hand up in the face mask. But if that doesn't happen, this defense has 10 sacks.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. It's really incredible when you think about what they were able to do. And this is what we wanted to see from Josh Uche, right? This is what we thought was there. And we got a sack last week. Obviously had 3 again this week. Like, it's just, that's the type of stuff that we haven't been seeing that we wanted to see. And now we're like, okay, let's let him pin his ears back. And of course, Matthew Judon's got 11.5, leads the NFL right now. He's been unbelievable. But
he's 1 sack shy of his career high of 12.5, which he set last year. I think I took the under on Judon sacks when we did that before the season. And
I might have too, to be honest with you. I don't know.
He beat, I don't remember what our over was that we set, but he definitely beat it already before the bye week.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we said it like 10. I might have picked the over, but I'm not confident that I did. So we'll see what happens there. But it's one of those things for me that, like, Judon obviously has been incredible. But the problem is for opposing NFL offenses is that, okay, Judon's been great. By the way, Christian Barmore wasn't even playing right now. So you're not even really getting that push up the middle. And I know Qualley had that sack that ended up getting reversed. And Deidre Wise has been pretty good inside and outside this year, rushing the passer. But their best pass rusher inside is Barmore. And he has been hurt the last few weeks. And so, getting him back healthy and having a consistent Josh Uche on the other side is going to make it almost impossible for opposing offenses to block the Patriots, because it's just, what are you going to do? You want to double team Judon, you need to, but now if you double team Judon, it leaves Barmore and Uche single blocked, and it's like, well, one of those guys is going to get to the quarterback if you don't double team them. So you really got to pay attention to that.
And that's kind of what we talked about, is that this defense is really, really, really good, probably top 5 minimum in the NFL when they know what's coming. If this defense can dictate the situations and make enough good plays to force the opposing offense to have to throw the ball, then they're going to put up numbers like this. This is what they did to the Browns at points in that game. This is what they did to the Lions. It's what they did to the Steelers at points in that game. It's just, if you force the other team to throw the ball, this team has guys that can pin their ears back and get to you. The issue is that we still don't know if this defense has enough guys that can play against the pass and the run at the same time. But, I mean, this is just, the Colts offense was dead in the water from the very first drive. And then I think the Patriots played 36 minutes of this game with a 2-score lead. If you're playing with a 2-score lead, your defense has a lot of ammo to play with, can do a lot more, and can really get after the passer. With how bad that line is too, I'm not surprised things went this way.
Yeah, which is crazy because, Quentin Nelson is considered one of the best, guards in football. They still have him on the team. Ryan Kelly is a guy who they drafted in the first round, who was a very good center for them for a few years. And they just stink. They're just not good anymore. That was their hallmark of their team,
They have the most expensive offensive line in the NFL. And they brought back, I think, 3 out of 5 guys from last year.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, the guys they brought in aren't working. And everybody that came back except for Nelson is not playing well. So it really is, that's kind of a perfect storm of bad play over there. And, I mean, we've seen it in New England too. If you can't protect the passer, if you can't get any push with your offensive line, you're dead in the water. Like,
100%.
The game is won in the trenches.
Right.
Or at least I don't know if it's won in the trenches anymore, but it is lost in the trenches.
Absolutely. And that's really the big thing is that, like it's one of those issues where you Dark Blue Gold's a good question. I did not walk home, but we decided to wait until after the 4 o'clock slates to record instead of waiting until I got home. So that's why the extra delay. I'm sorry for telling everyone on Twitter it was going to happen when I got home. It did not happen when I got home. We decided to watch the 4 o'clock games and let everyone else watch the 4 o'clock games and then record. So, but no, it's one of those things where if you flip it to the other side of the ball for the Patriots, you're in the same position now. Like you're looking at it saying, "Man, our offensive line stinks right now," and it's becoming a real problem. And the biggest problem that I see with it, obviously, not having a good offensive line is really bad. But not having a good offensive line and not calling plays like you have a bad offensive line is worse, in my opinion, because they're not calling quick hitters. They're not calling, 3 yard, the 3-step drop slants. They're not calling those. They're calling long 15-yard in route plays where Mac's got to sit back there and hold the ball. And then he's got guys in his lap. And it's just like, what are we doing right now? Like, it's frustrating. And you saw some things offensively that you didn't want to see. Taekwon, had his guy beat, and then instead of just running by him, was hand fighting with him, and Mac throws it basically where it needs to be, and Taekwon's not there because he's hand fighting with the corner instead of running, and so that was frustrating. Then Taekwon had another mistake too, where it looked like Mac threw a bad pass, but it's single high safety. You're not running a slant on that. You're running a go on that route. And instead of running a go, he runs a slant. And, so Mac throws it to the middle of nowhere. And everyone's like, what the hell are you doing? And it looks like, to the untrained eye, it looks like that's a bad play by Mac, but it's really a bad read by Taekwon. And so it's some of those things where you look at it and say, like, man, we got to get on the same page here. And they're not on the same page right now. And the offensive line is the offensive line's killing them right now, because they can't open up any holes to the running game, and they can't block anyone long enough for him to stand back there and make an accurate throw.
And the other problem with that, you talked about calling quick hitters. I mean, if you're having issues with the pass rush, the first thing you do is, all right, we're going to call a screen of some kind. They can't even execute screens. They had one good one with Jonnu out there, and that's it. I mean, they got nothing on them. That happened in the Bears game too, and that's the part that's
all year.
Yeah, the screen game is just non-existent right now. So there's nothing that you can rely on the offensive line to do. And the defense is going to sit on the short stuff because they know that you're not going to have a lot of time to throw. So in that sense, I kind of get what the offense is doing, because it's like, if they're going to sit all over the short stuff and our offensive line can't do anything well, let's at least call the concepts that our quarterback and receivers are comfortable with and hope that they can make something happen with it. Because in theory, you should be able to get guys open. Whether or not you can protect long enough is another question, but they should be able to get guys open.
Right.
But that's just, they got it together for a couple drives, which was enough to win this game. They got it together enough to get field goals, which will help you beat teams like this. It's just, field goals are not going to beat Buffalo, probably.
Right.
Maybe, given what we saw today, maybe that's not the case, but field goals don't beat them. Field goals might not beat Miami with how many points that offense has been putting up lately. Yep. Field goals probably don't beat Cincinnati. And if that's the case, that's 4 more losses after the bye, and you're looking at 9-8 best case scenario.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the imperative here has to be to fix things on the offensive line. They got it together enough for a couple drives. I got to look at the tape to see what it was that worked on those drives. But if you can if there's any line combination here that gets you even to, like, outside of one of the 5 or 10 worst lines in the league, you can make something work with how good some of these skill guys are.
Right. Well, and the hard thing is that everyone's talked about Isaiah Wynn and how bad he has been, and he has.
Yeah.
But Cole Strange now has been benched in back-to-back games, and I think a lot of that has to do with David Andrews not being there. I think that's a lot of it has to do with that, and I get that. But, like, you can't just struggle just because it's James Ferentz there and not David Andrews. Like, you have to play better than that.
And I think the problem is
bad,
Yeah, and like Trent Brown, if Trent Brown is your worst offensive lineman, you're probably in good shape, given like he's not the most disciplined. He's going to commit some penalties. He's going to make mistakes. But when he's in the right spot, he's going to do good things.
Right.
It's just you're only going to get that for like 85% of the snaps in a given game. But he's their second, third best offensive. When Andrews isn't out there, he's probably your second best offensive lineman.
Yeah.
He's a guy who is okay as your worst one. I mean, they got a chain with 4 weak links right now. Onwenu is good. Everybody else that's out there is just not getting it done. I thought, looked serviceable, at least.
Yeah.
I think he's probably more athletic right now than Wynn or Cannon would be. And obviously no Cannon right now. So that should give you a little bit extra there in some passing situations.
Yeah. He wasn't awful, which is like, it's honestly at this point right now for the right tackle position is kind of like, well, I mean, he wasn't awful. So like, we'll take it. It's just, it's rough. You know what I mean? It's rough. And you win the last 2 games, which is good. And we're happy that we won the last 2 games, of course. Right. But, Dark Blue Gold, I think, says it perfectly. He said, he says it's an exciting season of being slightly less bad at football than some of our opponents is unstable. And it is. You can't look at it and say, oh, well, these teams suck, and so we're going to be fine. We'll just be less bad than they are. And it's like, no, that's not good enough. You're not going to win games doing that. Right now, when you have 9 sacks, you're like those things, you were able to win those games. But, then you're turning the ball over still offensively. And Mac Jones didn't turn the ball over today, but, Jacoby Myers, like, he's fumbling. Kendrick Bourne fumbles. J.J. Taylor made a great play to get that ball. But, like, it's tough. Like, you can't be turning the ball over. You have to be disciplined and, and make good plays and don't do anything stupid. And the Patriots did a few stupid things today, but not enough, way less than the Colts did, and they were able to come away with a win.
Yeah, and the whole being slightly less bad at football thing is also tough right now because they blew 2 opportunities for that earlier in the season. That strategy, I mean, you kind of got a little bit unlucky with the draw, and I think the Bears and the Packers game when it came to injuries and just timing of when you played them compared to some of the other stuff. But those are 2 games I think especially that Packers game, really wish you had that right now. And I mean, the difference between being 6-3 and 5-4 at the bye feels kind of big right now if you're able to get that. But you talk about the receivers. I think the receivers have 5 or 6 fumbles this year. It's something like that. The team has fumbled in 8 of 9 games this season.
Brutal.
The team has turned the ball over in 11 straight games, which the last time they did that was the last 11 games of the 2009 season. And they only turned it over once today. In the games where they've only turned it over once this season, the only one they lost was that Packers one. Like, they're generally speaking, it was good, and Mac didn't turn it over, so you'll take that. The ball security was better, but it's just the unforced stuff. And honestly, none of the receiver fumbles are like awful. Like, most of them were somebody making a play on the ball, but that's kind of. If all of these plays was like somebody made a play or going 50-50, well, you're a mediocre team. Like, you got to make plays. That's what this game's all about. And if everything is a coin flip, then you're no better than half the league.
Right. And honestly, unfortunately, and Dark Blue Gold is talking about the preseason. And I think, we're kind of the worries that people had in the preseason, and we can talk about the coaching, but I think that's kind of what they are this year. I think they're a mediocre team this year that is middle of the pack. They're not very good. I do think, and this is something that my dad and I have been talking about really since the beginning of the year, is that next year is the big jump for them. Next year is the year they want to make the big jump. You look at Max going into his 3rd year. Tyquan's going to be going into his 2nd year. Ramondre will be in his 3rd year in the league. Like, Barmore will be going to his 3rd year. You have Judon again. Like, you're developing
$61 million
players.
in cap space.
Ton of cap space. So you're developing players. You can go out and get an offensive lineman if you want to. You can draft an offensive lineman in the 1st round or the 2nd round, or you can kind of fix things as you go. And this year is about getting those young guys as much experience as possible, and continuing to develop this defense and the players that you have on offense. But still, you're looking for more than what you're getting out of some of the players that you have. And Mac is a guy that, and I don't want to get, well, maybe we can get into Mac, but I just, look, he's the quarterback. And we've talked about this before. Like, He's the quarterback. It's not Bailey Zappi. It's Mac Jones. But although he didn't turn the ball over today, he certainly didn't look great. He looked
He was
panicked in the pocket a
fine.
lot of times. There were multiple times when he had Kendrick Bourne running wide open across the field and he just wasn't looking at him. And it's like even the Myers catch where like Myers jumped in front of the guy and knocked it up in the air and then caught it, but he was like out of bounds. But it was a phenomenal play by Myers. Bourne was wide open and he was right in front of him. And it was like, man, what are you looking at? Like Kendrick Bourne's all alone. Just throw it to him. Like it just.
Yeah.
And he did that. And that happened consistently all day long. And it's like, buddy, for whatever reason, he's not seeing the field like he was last year. And I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if he's not comfortable. I don't know if he's gun shy because of, the fact that Zappi went in for him last time and he's worried about, I don't know what's going on. But it's hard for me to look at him and have any confidence in what he's doing right now, right? Last year ended, and I'm like, that's the guy. He's the guy. He's the future guy. Now I look at it, and I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't know if he's the guy or not. And, that puts the Patriots at a huge disadvantage because if you don't have the quarterback, you can have pretty much everything else. And if you don't have the quarterback, it's going to make it awfully difficult.
Yeah. Well, I just look at the defense today and the way that they were able to tee off against the passer, and then look at the Patriots offensive line, and then think back to the 6 weeks of training camp and practices and all that. No wonder Mac Jones looked skittish when we saw him in the preseason.
Right.
No wonder he looked skittish when we saw him week 1. He was dealing with this for a while before that. Right. And then you add on the injuries and things have only gotten worse. It's like, I don't know what you do with Mac Jones right now. I don't think he's bad. I think he clearly knows everything on the whiteboard. I think he can clearly make every throw they want him to make. I think he's clearly tough. I think he's clearly leadership material. The problem is he's not seeing the field as well as you would like right now. He's not processing that quickly. And he seems to kind of get stuck where he'll only look at one guy or one side of the field. He's just not seeing everything. There's no full field understanding of what's going on.
Right.
And I think you saw some of that last year. So I think the only way you can find out if he can get back to that and if he can develop that is to be able to protect him. But I also don't know if that's going to happen over the back half of the season after the bye. And if that doesn't happen after the bye, then you're in a very interesting spot. Although, quite frankly, I think you could argue that it's about the same spot the Dolphins were in at that point last season when they put a lot into the offensive line and traded for Tyreek Hill. So obviously they're doing all right now. What, 6-3?
That's very true. I mean, that's very true. And that's one of those things you look at and say, like, we all went into this year saying, like, Tua sucks. He stinks, and he's no good, and he's this, and he's that. Well, all of a sudden, you can protect him, and you have two ridiculous weapons like they have, and all of a sudden, they're an explosive offense, and Tua is playing great. And so it matters.
I don't think Tua is necessarily better than he was last year, but he's playing better because they got him the help he needs. You're going to need a little bit of that with Mac because he's never going to be, maybe he could be, but he's never going to have like the highest level physical traits. So he's got to win with the mental ones. He has better physical traits than people think too. I think his arm looks a little bit better than it did when he has his feet under him. His arm is at least decent, and he can obviously move a little bit. I think he's comfortable with the concepts. Again, it's just application. Like especially when you hear the coaches talk about him, it's not like this guy clearly understands what's going on and understands everything they want. It's just not translating. Maybe the bye week helps with that. Maybe seeing the Jets again helps with that. He wasn't bad today. He didn't turn the ball over. I don't want to say he's not. Right. This isn't to say he's awful. I don't know if he's better than like Jared Goff.
Yeah. Well, and that's right. And that's not great. And now Jared Goff got to Super Bowl.
You can get to a Super Bowl with that guy.
But, you didn't win.
Jimmy G. Yeah.
Right.
And
right.
Can he make the one throw when you need him to make the one throw?
Correct. Yeah. And that's really kind of, that's what you're looking at right now. And so it's interesting. Yeah. It is interesting for me, like a guy like Kirk Cousins, which to me, I always felt like, I've been saying this since last year, that I think his ceiling is Kirk Cousins. The difference with Kirk Cousins is that anytime it's a big game in a big moment, I think that, he poops his pants. right?
Mhm.
And so, like, if Mac can beat Kirk Cousins, but still play well in those big moments, well, now you can look at it and say, okay, like, we have something here. Because Kirk Cousins, when he plays well, is a top 10 to 12 quarterback in the NFL. Just
Yeah.
when he plays bad, he's really bad. And so, like, it's just, if you can get more of the good than bad, now you can look at it and say, okay, we can win with that. We can win with a player like that. It's just that he needs weapons around him. He has to have good players around him. And Tyquan Thornton, I think, can get there. We saw a guy that, just wasn't mentally ready today. I mean, just clearly wasn't mentally ready today. Should have caught a touchdown pass. And again, like I said, I don't know what he was doing with
Well,
the
he
corner.
also got covered by Stephon Gilmore for long stretches too, which one I think
True.
tells you a lot about how the Colts
Yeah.
viewed him with the
Yep.
receiving group. And two, I mean, it's add that to the long, long list of guys who've had a tough day
Very true.
against Stephon Gilmore.
No, it's very true. Well, I mean, and that's Hunter Henry's seam down the middle of the field, which is a great throw by Mac. That happened because Thornton requires that other safety over the top. If you're playing man coverage, you got to have a safety over the top. That safety goes towards Tyquan's side. And now there's a big void in the middle of the field for Hunter Henry to run a seam down, and Mac hits him. And that's the type of thing that I think you're going to see open up more consistently.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I'm kind of realizing now too is if you go back to last year, especially with how bad the skill position group was at points early in last season, teams were just giving you man coverage, which is easy for a quarterback. You look at your matchups, you pick the ones you like, and you're going to throw to the guy that's open.
Right.
Now that you have guys who are actually like good receivers out there and require attention, now you're seeing a lot more zone, and you've seen it in the NFL in general this year. And that's just a different skill set to read it. And that I
Right.
think is where Mac has gotten stuck here. So, I mean, I hopefully he can figure it out. I mean, sometimes the switch just flips for guys. Like it makes sense for them. And maybe it's a comfort thing. Like against the Ravens, he looked really good. I know it was 2.5 quarters in week 3 of the season. So I don't want to bang that drum forever, but that's the only time where he's looked comfortable and had time behind this offensive line all season. And I don't think that it is a coincidence that was his best game for large portions of it.
Right. Well, which is true. Which is true. So we'll see. I mean, listen, ultimately, like you said, they won the game. And Mac, I thought the throw to Myers where he threw it in a window that was that big, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, people in the stands are like, "What a terrible throw!" And I'm like, "What a terrible throw? What do you mean? Like he threw it in a window that didn't even exist."
The throw is an amazing catch by Myers too. My
It was a
only issue
great
is
catch.
I have to rewatch the film. I think he might have been a little bit late on it, which is why he had to fit it into a small window.
Right.
But I
Right.
mean, that's the thing. If you want to point to an elite trait for Mac Jones, it's his accuracy.
Right.
When his feet are there and he can hit guys, he can fit it in really, really small windows.
Right.
So I'll take it. Again,
Yeah.
Myers, fantastic catch there.
Yeah.
He had a
Yeah. And
great
that's
grab on that.
and it's one of those things for me that, like, I still think we're okay with Mac, but it has to be better.
Yeah.
Right. It has to be better. So
Dark Blue Gold saying anybody tuning in would be forgiven for thinking we lost or something.
that's
That
true.
that with the dominate headline. I think let's give this offense some props here. Ramondre Stevenson. So good. For his first receiving touchdown today. You
Yeah.
got Ramondell Beckham out there with the one-handed catch.
I get it, but man, like, I love seeing the one-handed catches, but like, can we catch it with two hands? Like, counts the same way with two hands. You know what I mean? Like, so, but
Hey, it was nice.
yeah,
That was a nice throw from Mac. He saw it
it
well.
was.
And
Yep. And that's it's some of those things where you start looking at it and saying, okay, we have some different things. Guys got to get open, right? And people in the stands are booing. Throw the ball to this guy. I'm like, throw the ball to who? No one's open. What do you want him to do? Like, he can't just throw it to a guy that's triple covered, because that's where the interceptions are all coming from. He was making better decisions about not throwing it into triple coverage, which is good. I'm happy about that.
And he spread the ball out today. Last week, you saw a really heavy concentration on Myers and Ramondre. Today, 6 different guys had at least 4 targets. He spread the ball around there. It was a short game too. Well, somehow they had 14 possessions actually. One of them was that short one off the blocked punt. That's why.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
the game, it felt like they weren't out there that much. And it was. I mean, the offensive line only allows you to do so much. So I thought, with taking that into consideration, all the skill guys looked pretty good.
Right. Well, and the part for me that I think is interesting is that, and I guess the coaching look, I think that some of the coaching, some of the offensive play calling has been not up to par. Um, I would like to see more of that short game that we saw with Zappy. I feel like they ran it a lot better with Zappy, whereas Max coming in and they're taking, too long. But I think offensively, like the coaching staff has been okay. I think one place that you saw the coaching staff really step up was special teams today. I thought special teams did a great job. Outside of Jake Bailey, I thought special teams did a great job today, right? They had that block punt, which, was something that I hadn't seen before. Belichick talked about that they knew that he was going to be playing the wind, so they knew that like he was going to be punting kind of towards that way. And so by sending John Jones in late, they were hoping that they could sneak him over there and not get a block, which is exactly what happened. They snuck him over there. They never realized he was there, and they never blocked him. And he got right in there and blocked it. And it was really close. It was really, really close for Schooler to scoop that up and score, but he just lost his balance and ended up falling down, which would have been great. I would have loved it because Schooler, I think, has been absolutely phenomenal. On punt coverage, on kick coverage, he's been fantastic. And so I was really happy to see that. Jake Bailey's got to be better. But outside of that, Marcus Jones had another great return today. Like, he looks electric out there, and the blocking looks very good too. So, like, it's one of those things where if you give him a hole to run through, you're going to pick up 15, 20 yards at least on a punt return, and that's huge. And he's going to break one of these at some point. He's going to have a punt return touchdown at some point this year because he's getting close. He's picking up, 20 yards, 15 yards, 30 yards, whatever. And at one point, he's going to make one more move. He's going to shake a guy, and bam, he's going to be gone. So, but I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Oh, yeah.
Watching Marcus back there.
His vision out there is really, really good too. It's impressive. He's just so exciting when he's on the field. And we talk about the issues with the offense. You want to overcome that, get some special teams touchdowns like this, and give yourself short fields. I mean, as soon as they got short fields, the offense looked a lot better. And that's all you need. Like, if this is, you might not be able to protect Mac, but if you can get defensive stops, get decent punt returns, get yourself at the 40, your own 40 instead of your own 20, that's a chunk play of difference that you have just made up between defense and special teams, making that difference. And that is huge, especially if you're going to be playing in close games. And when you play Buffalo, if you're able to get a special teams touchdown or a defensive touchdown in there, that can be the difference. Obviously, with Buffalo, you have to get the special teams on the field first, which has been an issue for them as of late.
That's correct, yes.
But as long as you can do that, those are the plays that can turn games. And that's how the 0-1, 0-3 Patriots were able to make a lot. I mean, how many close games those teams won? It's because they did the little things like that. The small plays that can make huge differences. And special teams is back, except for Bailey, like you said. 7 punts, 1 inside the 20, a net average of 34 yards.
Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. The 0-1, talk about the 0-1 Patriots. The 0-1 Patriots won the Super Bowl and scored 3 offensive touchdowns in 3 games in the playoffs. So, they had a pick 6 in the Super Bowl. They had a blocked punt return. They had a blocked kick return for a touchdown in the Steelers game. They had a punt return for a touchdown in the Steelers game. Like, they just, that's just what they did. Like, they were unbelievable. I think they set the record for most non-offensive touchdowns in a season that year. They were fantastic. That's how you win those games.
Exactly. And as you're still figuring out some other stuff here, the late bye I think helps you out too. Hopefully they can get healthy. I know we're going to talk about the defense, but Barmore is still not out there. We haven't seen a healthy defensive line since week 2, I think.
Right.
Or partway through week 3, when I think in the week 3 is when Guy went out.
Right.
So we haven't seen them fully healthy since then. Getting Barmore back, if that can happen after the bye, would be awesome. Getting Andrews presumably back after the bye should help. He's probably your second best offensive lineman right now, and you need all the help you can get.
Yeah.
And then I saw some graphic earlier about the most injured teams in the NFL, and the Patriots were like 25th or 26th, somewhere in that realm. So one of the more injured groups. So getting that bye, getting things together could not come at a better time.
Yeah, and I do think that the Patriots, like, you got to assume Barmore's going to be back after the bye. He's already missed 2 games, I think. So you'd have to assume, has he missed 2 or 3 games? He's
I
definitely
think
missed 2. Might be 3.
3.
So you would think if it was going to be that long of an absence that they would have thrown him on IR, right? To free up a roster spot. They didn't do that. So you'd have to assume that he's at least fairly close. I don't know, but you'd have to think that.
What kind of injury was it for him? Was that an ankle injury?
I think it's an ankle. It might have been a knee, but I think it's an ankle. But you talked about Jake Bailey. Bailey had a 58-yarder to start, which is a great punt. Tons of hang time, good punt. Then he followed it 36, 47, 40, 44, and then 7. He had a 7-yard punt to end the game.
That
it didn't matter at that point,
right?
But it was just like, no, just went off the side of his foot. And it just like, that's the type of stuff where it's like, you never saw that. You never saw that from Jake Bailey. Like, he was consistent as all get up. He was fantastic. And you just, it was just like, what are we doing? Right? Like Ryan Allen, and Dark Blue Gold mentioned Ryan Allen. Like, Ryan Allen was basically MVP of the Super Bowl and doesn't come back because you bring in this kid, Jake Bailey, and he was fantastic in 2019. And he was very
the best
good
punter in the league last year.
Right. And so then he comes in this year and you're like, man, this guy, he just sucks. He signed this big contract and he just can't hit the ball. So he played well last week against the Jets. So I was hoping he'd get back on track, and he did not. And so I have no idea what's going on. It's incredibly frustrating to watch them.
And here's the thing: they have to eat money if they cut him.
Right.
They have to eat a lot of money, which means there's a situation if they can't play him. There's a situation where maybe they just have 2 punters on the roster. There's a situation where they might have 2 punters on the practice squad, and they are going to elevate them on alternate weeks until Bailey figures it out. The other part of this, too, is that for as awful as Bailey's been, he's also the holder for your kicker.
Right.
And they've been working, Nick Folk's been here since 2020. So they've had that operation down with Cardona, Folk, and Bailey for 2.5 years now. And like, if you mess with that and a bad hold ends up being the difference in one of these games, and Nick Folk's been automatic. He's probably been he's the best kicker in the league under 50 yards who isn't Justin Tucker, probably.
Right. And not only that, he's your most important point scorer. He scores more points than the rest of your team. You have to, you can't screw with that,
Yeah. So it's just a weird spot to be in. He's got the yips. And he was able to fix it for 1 week. Hopefully he can figure it out. I like Jake Bailey too. Clearly they like him. It's all been good.
He mentioned Folk, 9 for 9 the last 2 weeks? That's just foolish.
He's so
he's
good.
Been unbelievable.
50. Yeah. And for Barmore, it is this was his 3rd straight game missing.
Yeah.
He went out during the Browns one. He's missed Bears, and now Colts. So getting him back helps. We've had issues with the defensive line stopping the run. And I think part of that is just, you're losing guys. Part of it's stamina too. Like they should have 3 starting caliber defensive tackles between Guy, Barmore, and Godshaw. And they like putting 3 defensive tackles out there at the same time. So that helps you do that. When they don't want to do that, it means you can rotate them, give them all 10 snaps extra off a game, and they're all going to play a little bit fresher. And it helps you against the run. And they just haven't had, the quality is fine, but he's not that good. He's a guy who you can play 5 to 10 snaps a game and feel all right with it. I don't really want him playing more than that.
Right. My dad just texted me. Does this sometimes during the thing. He was saying about Bailey, and I did notice this. Bailey kicks end over end now, it seems, as opposed to with a spiral, which is strange. And maybe part of the reason he's struggling is because he's kicking that way and not kicking the way he's always kicked. I don't know. It just seems bizarre that kicking end over end. It doesn't make any sense to me. I get it if you're trying to check the ball up near the goal line, but if you're just punting, why aren't you just punting like a normal spiral? I don't know. I don't
have an answer. I'm far from a punting expert, but
me too. You would think Belichick is like his dad wrote the thing on punting, right? Literally wrote the book on punting. So, and I don't know if it's deliberate either. Dark Blue Gold's asking if it's deliberate. I don't know. I don't know if he's trying to deliberately because he was struggling with something else. I have no idea, but it can't stay that way. But at the same time, like you say, the field goal kicking operation's been so big for them
Mhm.
then it's been fantastic. And it's like, how do you mess with that? So
Yeah. So
it's
I mean, it's
it's difficult.
hopefully that again with how good Bailey has been. I think at this point you have to hope he just figures it out at
Right.
some point. I think depending on what happens too, you can all. I mean, if you needed to, you could have 2 game day punters and have Bailey do kickoffs and holds and have another guy punt. They had some guys that didn't play today. Cody Russi never saw the field, and depending on
Right.
what happens when people come back, maybe you can switch stuff up. But
Not ideal. That would not be ideal to have a punter and have a guy that kicks off and just holds. Like I
yeah,
don't
we're gonna
love
have
that idea.
no. It's now we're getting into really weird territory, and it's like usually teams that are good don't have those issues.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is it's crazy that we're this doom and gloom right now after a 26-3 win and 5-4 going into the bye.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, the other part of it for me with what the Patriots have done now, you are, you're still last place in the division. I mean, ultimately, right? Like you're not there yet. Now I know we have a chance to pass the Jets in 2 weeks when you play them. So that's good. But like you're still last place in the division at 5-4. Now, if you were in the NFC South, you'd be winning by 2 games, but that's not the point. You're not. So, it's just it's one of those interesting things. And I think that the Jets have a lot of things they can hang their hat on. I think their defense is extremely good. I think their quarterback stinks, but I think their defense is extremely good. I think the Bills are the Bills, right? And the Dolphins right now look very good. That offense looks really good. And so it's a question of what do the Patriots really do well, right? Like what do you look to this team and say, okay, they're really good at doing this. Right now it's getting after the passer, right? Defensively, they're playing great. But, they haven't been great against the run. So now you say, okay, well, if I'm another team, do I just run against them? And by the way, Justin Fields, who broke the single game rushing record for a quarterback this year in the regular season with 178 rushing yards, they figured it out against the Patriots. They were like, hey, maybe we should run with Justin Fields because like he's really fast and stuff. Like, and they were like, oh, that makes sense. It's like pretty good. But when the Patriots play guys like that, they can't stop them. Josh Allen kills them every time he plays them running the ball. They can't stop these guys,
Yeah. I'm intrigued to see what happens in that first Bills game. I will say also, I think it helps the Patriots that they've only played 2 division games so far,
Right.
and they haven't played a single division opponent at home.
That's
They
true.
still have all 3 of those left. So, I mean, if you somehow find a way to win all 3 of them, and worst case then is that you're going to split, well, not even worst case is split. Worst case is 4 wins in the division because in that case you're sweeping the Jets.
Right.
Now you feel like you're in a good spot. I'm intrigued to see what this pass defense looks like against the Bills when they play. That's December 1st, so we got a little bit of time here. But with the way some of these corners are playing, I think you can play man. I think some of these guys probably match up better than like JC Jackson did against Stephon Diggs.
Right.
And the addition of Jabril Peppers also probably helps. Peppers is playing out of his mind lately, especially against the run, which he's the type of guy where you wonder if you might play with a light defensive line if Judon Barmore and Uche can get pressure. Don't care about the run except the QB stuff because of the way the Bills have been, and you have Peppers spy on whatever the QB is doing. He's one of the few that I think has the athleticism to take down Josh Allen and play with him. I think Duggar can do that too. I think Phillips can do that too. They got some of those body types. And the Bills don't have that same downhill rushing attack that the Bears or the Ravens showed you. They don't have as many of those big body types. So I'm optimistic on that front. Obviously, I'm pessimistic because if you take out that cold weather game last year, the Bills have now gone 3 games in a row without punting against the Patriots. Right. So holding them to 40 points and forcing 1 punt is an improvement.
Right. And that's, it's one of those things for me that I just look at it and think like, okay, if you can play with these guys, we'll see what happens. But I'm not taking anything from the Bills. I'm not taking any of that stuff for granted. Now, I will say January 8th, the last game of the season, there's a possibility, and it's not a guarantee, but there's a possibility that game doesn't matter to the Buffalo Bills. That game is, they have the number 1 seed sewed up. The season's over, right? And so they may not play Josh Allen. they may not play some of their main guys because they might say we don't want to get anyone hurt and we'll be ready for the postseason. They also might be guaranteed the 2 spot, right? And when the Chiefs are the number 1, they're guaranteed the 2. They can't get the 1, they can't get the 3. They're stuck in the 2 spot. So they don't really have to, again, doesn't matter to them, right? So there is a possibility that last game of the season in Buffalo doesn't matter to the Bills, but it matters to the Patriots. And so the Patriots play and the Bills don't care. The Bills are like, whatever. Yeah, do whatever you want. Fine. We're starting Ken Dorsey this game. I know Ken Dorsey's the offensive coordinator, not the quarterback, but you get what I'm saying.
Who is their backup? Who do they got?
I have no idea. Couldn't tell you. Might as well be Ken Dorsey anymore, as far as I'm concerned.
I gotta look this
It might be. It might be Matt Barkley.
I don't think he's still up there. Let's see here.
Let's see. Bills roster.
Case Keenum.
Oh, he of the Minnesota Miracle.
The flip side of everything we're saying here, and the really nice thing is the Patriots will have opportunities in the back half to prove that they are a playoff team. They have the chance to fix it with the bye week, an opportunity to get healthy. If they can figure out a single offensive line combination that works, and Barmore coming back makes the run defense passable, those 2 changes alone, which aren't like monumental asks, means that this is a playoff caliber team, especially compared to what we've seen in the NFL this year. Then you just got to go out and win the games, which is tough, but you got a Raiders team that cannot stop blowing leads. You're going to play an Arizona team that to me is not particularly inspiring.
They stink.
At this point, you got Miami at home, which it's the home game. It's a tough opponent. They've given you issues, but it's the home one. Like that's going to be Patriots might not be favored, but they're going to have every chance to win that game. Same goes for the Cincinnati one, although the way the Bengals looked today against the Panthers, I'm a little bit more scared of them, especially without Jamar Chase.
Yes.
Yeah, what they just did to that defense. But you're in a spot where if you beat the Jets, you win 3 of those other 4 I just mentioned, you're at 9 wins.
Right.
I think that gets you in this year, depending on what else happens. And if you're able to steal any other games in there, on the flip side, like if you sweep the Jets, split with the Dolphins, tiebreaker wise, that probably helps you too.
Correct. Well, you're gonna have to pass. You're gonna have to pass the Jets. You can't end up in last place in the AFC East. I don't care what your record is. You can't end up in last place in the AFC East and expect to make the playoffs. It just can't happen. So you're gonna have to beat the Jets in 2 weeks. You're gonna probably have to beat. You're gonna have to beat the Dolphins at home on New Year's. And you're going to have to win the majority of those other games, right? Even if you lose both of those against the Bills, say you clip the Bills in one of those games, hey, it gives you a better shot. But you're going to have to really kind of perform, I think. So
the other AFC East teams have both gotten home wins over Buffalo now too. So
that's true.
I think there's a little bit of pressure there. And you look at what the defense. I think the Bills scored 17 today, and I think 19 in Miami, and 2 of those came off of safety, so 17 on offense.
Right.
So just Josh Allen also always seems to tune up his game when he plays New England.
Oh yeah. Because he knows that that this is really this is really what it matters. What matters.
He's a big game player. I'll tell you that much. He gets up for the moment. I think you can tell in his preparation at times too. I think there's another level he takes it to against the big opponents, and that'll be a primetime game week after Thanksgiving when they come to Foxborough. So I mean it's going to be a big one.
Man, the Patriots aren't done any favors by the league. So they have a bye week this week, and then they're playing the Jets the week after that. So you think, oh, nice, the Patriots get a bye, and so nope, the Jets get a bye this week too. So they don't get an advantage over the Jets. So then you say, oh, well, the Patriots are playing on Thanksgiving, and then the following week they're playing on Thursday again. So you're like, oh, well, that means that the other team has a short week, but the Patriots have a regular week because they played on Thanksgiving. Oh no, wait, the Bills are actually playing on Thanksgiving as well. So they don't get it's like, man, could the Patriots just get a little bit of an advantage against the next team? And I guess they get an advantage the next week after the Bills game when they play whoever the hell they play that first week of December. Is it the Raiders?
The Arizona game? I forget which one comes first.
I forget, but you're right. So, but then it's like, well, does Arizona get the bye? I'm like, does Arizona get the freaking bye week like the week of that week or something like that? So it's one of those things. So I agree with you. I will say about the Raiders, right? And the Katonwe, I'm not sure how to say that, but about Mark Davis firing Josh so we can get him back. I saw someone say on Twitter today, and I don't know who it was, but saw someone say on Twitter today that the Patriots and Raiders would probably be better off if Josh had just stayed in New England. So, which is just kind of funny because that team, I think there were some expectations from that team that were very unrealistic. I think that team sucks, to be completely honest with you. I think they stink. And so like the drafting's been awful for the last few years, just really, really bad for the last few years. And so I think they have a terrible offensive line. They have a terrible offensive line. They have a terrible defense. The defense
It's
is
a terrible everything outside of Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, and Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. And so it's just one of those
Brandon
things
Bolden,
where it's like,
he's good.
Yeah. And so like to me, that's one of the hard things for me, that I just like, I think people had these expectations because they traded a first round pick for Devontae Adams that they were going to be great, and they were never going to be great. Now the hard part is
also
that
trading a first for Devontae Adams tells other people what your internal expectations are too.
That's correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
Now, did they trade a first round pick in next year's draft for Devontae Adams? They did, right? In 23?
I would assume.
I think it was in 23. And that pick's going to end up being a really good pick. So the Packers are going to have
that's where they get the Aaron Rodgers replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah. At this rate, because he looks absolutely done with playing in Green Bay. I will say, we are saying this is a coaching failure from Josh McDaniels, but I think the counter argument to that is that this team is awful, and he's the only reason why they're able to scheme up stuff to get leads in this game, and then the team is so bad that the opponent makes adjustments and eventually puts things together.
Which is a good point.
I haven't watched enough Raiders football to tell you what's the case. Usually, if you blow a lot of leads, you're not a good team, and that has at least something to do with the coaching. So, and we've seen
that's a fair point.
We've seen Josh McDaniels in a head coaching position before, and it didn't go well. So I'm not sure he gets the benefit of the doubt here. I think
that's a fair point.
He probably gets a second year out there. Unless,
I think you have to give him a second year. I mean, I don't think you have much of a choice. You have to give him a second year. And by the way, it was not. It was a 2022 first round pick and a 2022 second round pick.
So that trade's already the trade's done then.
Already done. The Packers drafted Quay Walker at 22.
Wow.
The linebacker out of Georgia.
Fine.
Yeah, he's been okay.
Yeah. I will say, I'm gonna highlight a comment here. Cody Woods, Patriots wearing the Reds. Yes, they're wearing the Reds against Buffalo, the throwbacks there. So hopefully they win that. I'm trying to remember. I think they're undefeated in the red uniforms. No, not true. I did an article on this actually, but there's two versions of the red throwback. In the red throwback that's based on the 80s uniform, which is what they wear today, they're undefeated. And the red throwback that's based on like the early dynasty ones, they had one loss, and that was in Miami in 2009. So wearing the red at Gillette, any red at Gillette, they're undefeated.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. All right. Well, there you go. Under Belichick, I assume that is. I mean, clearly.
Yeah. Clearly at Gillette Stadium. So
at Gillette Stadium. Good point. Yes, since 02. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, that does it.
Yep,
so I mean, hopefully they win that one, but that game has me.
That's very. I mean, that's one of those things that I'm like.
And Von Miller
I'm not expecting a win.
Yeah, Von Miller against any of these offensive tackles. I mean,
yikes. Maybe they'll line him up. Maybe they'll line him up inside, and Onwenu can block him instead. That would be good.
Can we put what's the offensive equivalent of a spy? Could we have an outside linebacker spy and just put Onwenu on Von Miller, and he can just follow him around?
Jesus.
It's
we'll see. We'll see what happens in that game. It's a long way to go to that game, So
yeah, we got a lot of football to play, and that home Jets game. That's one of those where I think if you lose it, you're not out, but you don't feel good about where you are.
Yeah, you really want to, especially coming off the bye, you want to look better offensively, and that's really the biggest thing, And I want to wrap up soon because we're going for almost an hour here, but I think that when you talk about coming off the bye against the Jets, and having beaten the Jets soundly last weekend in the Meadowlands, and then of course the Jets host the Bills and beat the Bills after you play them. Now you're looking at it saying, okay, you're walking out of this game not feeling great. Like the rest of the offense was like, yeah, okay, we didn't play as good as we wanted to. The Colts are an absolute dumpster fire, just an absolute dumpster fire. That I feel like they're tanking this year. So fine, but you don't feel great about the win. Like you're like, all right, we won, but there's still a lot of work to do. Meanwhile, the Jets are flying high. They're feeling great about themselves because their offense didn't play well either, but you beat the freaking Bills at home. So, of course you feel good. right? And so
Yeah.
that becomes a thing where now it's like now they're going in with a lot of momentum, and they want to get revenge on you for losing at home.
And quite frankly, that game, the Patriots did not look great against the Jets either. That was all a Zach
That was
Wilson
Zach Wilson.
implosion and the offense putting enough together to win. And
Exactly.
if you get the Zach Wilson that showed up today, that game probably goes differently. Which
Right.
it didn't even look great, but it's just not making the mistakes. And I think that right there, that's the story of these Patriots. We've said it every week. It's all about which team makes more mistakes. That determines the outcome. And
Right.
today the Colts made more mistakes and worse ones, so the Patriots won. The
Yeah.
Bears didn't really make any mistakes when they came to town, so they thrashed us. And they made one pick, and it was a deflection. That was it.
Yeah.
So, and you're going to have to do it again to Zach Wilson, which I think he's shown he's more than capable of doing that and imploding. I think it's more likely that he happened to get up for a big game at home, especially after a tough home loss. But they got time. They can prepare. They can figure stuff out. They can scheme stuff. And it's probably going to be another low-scoring, close game determined by a couple plays, unless obviously the Patriots put stuff together and really dominate them. The Patriots, with things put together, should win this game.
Well, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, it's one of those things that you have to come out and play better. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, the Colts stink. They're a complete mess. I don't know what they're doing. Sam Ellinger isn't good. I think that's pretty obvious to see. Like anyone can see that Sam Ellinger isn't that good.
And he didn't have a chance today anyway.
and it was also like there was one play, and it just like seems like they're poorly coached. Like so, there's one play with Deion Jackson where Ellinger rolled out to his right, and Jackson is next to him, and Peppers is downfield, and Jackson, if I'm coaching him up, I'm telling Jackson, just go deep. Just run past Peppers because now Peppers has to make a decision. Am I going to attack the quarterback or am I going to go with the running back? And now it's like, well, if I go with the running back, Ellinger can run past the line of scrimmage. But if I try to take out the quarterback, now he can throw it over my head to the running back and there's nobody else there. But instead, Deion Jackson just kind of stood there. And so Ellinger ended up running, picked up like 3 yards, and it was like, well, that could have turned into a 15-yard game by Ellinger, or basically not a touchdown, but like a 30-yard game to Deion Jackson. So like, it just becomes one of those things where it's like the coaching stinks. I think Frank Reich's getting fired after this year. I think he knows that. He fired his offensive coordinator a week after making the change to Ellinger quarterback.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where like they're not good, and so you crush that team, which is good, and realistically. Did you crush them? I mean, I don't know. You had trouble moving the ball at one point. Like
you stood there while they self-imploded.
Right, correct. And it was like what after like 4 drives, the two teams together had like 60 combined total yards, and it was like you've got to be kidding me. Like they had negative yards. The Colts had negative yards for the first like 4 drives of the game. Cumulative because of all the sacks and everything, but still, and it's like, come on.
And if I'm remembering, the Colts did not get their first down without that wasn't because of a penalty until late in the first half. Yeah, they got that one on the first drive.
Right.
I will some stats to shout out the Pats defense here. Patriots defense had 9 sacks to 8 first downs allowed.
Unbelievable.
Which is incredibly impressive. Colts were 0 of 14 on third down and 0 for 2 on fourth. So 0 for 16 on late down conversions, which as far as I think Alex Barth was looking into it or Andrew Callahan, I don't remember which one. As far as they could tell, it's probably a record. If not, it is in a category of like 3 games that have ever been like that, which I mean, it's the Lions game part 2.
Right.
That's what this was. I will say the offense did a couple nice things. They had that big pass to Hunter Henry, 30-yard pass from Mac Jones, which I think was massive. They had another 40-yard drive for a field goal in the second half, which I think they needed. It's just, and obviously punching in the touchdown, I think was big. They needed that to get 6 instead of a field goal after the blocked punt to really finish off that play. But it's just, your first 2 drives are -2 and -3 yards. You have No, a 2-yard drive in there. That's there.
Yeah,
There's some not
there was
great
some
stuff.
rough ones. There was some rough ones. I mean, the Colts, just to put it in perspective, right? If we take a look at what the Colts did here, okay? They went 0 for 14 on third down, 0 for 2 on fourth down. They ran 60 offensive plays, 60, and had 121 total yards. And, they had 43 passing yards. Now, of course, they had 103, but they lost 60 yards in sacks. And they had 78 rushing yards. But what's interesting about the 78 rushing yards, if you look at the 78 rushing yards, Ellinger had 5 carries for 39 yards. He had a 19-yard run like late in the fourth quarter or like middle of the fourth quarter. And that was when they went over 100 yards total for the game. Like they couldn't do anything offensively. They couldn't move the ball. Deion Jackson, who had a great game actually, I think he had 2 great games when Taylor was out a few weeks ago. He had 11 carries for 23 yards. Like they could get nothing going on the ground, throwing. It was awful. The Colts were awful. But on the other side of it, the Patriots defense was stifling. They played great defense. They made a lot of great plays in the passing game. They were all over them.
We haven't even talked about that Jonathan Jones pick 6 in here, which I kind of thought that hit the ground. I'm not going to question it too much. It was a great play either way, and heads up, and you run that in, you play it out, and you see what they end up calling it. Pressure, get the quarterback going to his left, force him into a bad spot. I mean, that's everything.
Probably should have been caught, but
that's everything that they love to do to a rookie quarterback. Put him under pressure, and I mean, it should have been caught, but it also wasn't
a great
throw.
Yeah.
So it's just like that's what you want to see.
Oh yeah. Defense. Well, and as soon as he caught it, he snagged it like Dark Gold said, and then then he makes that spin move on the guy who dropped the ball, and then takes it to the house. And it was just
that Pierce or was that?
No, it was 83. No, it was 83. I don't even know who that is.
Was it? Okay.
Backup tight end probably or something like that. I think Ali Cox wears 80. No. It might be Mo Ali Cox because what's his name wears 80. The rookie tight end.
Yeah.
Can't think of
his
name.
I'm gonna look up a video of this play now while we're doing this.
What the hell is the kid's name? Jelani Woods. Jelani Woods was 80. I'm pretty sure Mo Ali Cox is. Mo Ali Cox was 81, so I have no idea who 83 is, but it was 83.
It was 83. Yeah.
So
yes, and I mean that's a great play. That's all you can ask for in that.
Right.
And it's
right.
Here's the thing.
Oh, Kylan Granson, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Kylan Granson from SMU.
Nice. I like it.
Third string tight end.
Yeah. I will say, simply standing there with your hand out on the opponent's forehead while they self-implode is a somewhat decent strategy this year in the NFL with how teams should play.
That's a good point.
I said that kind of dismissively before, but now that I'm thinking about it, if you do that and you do not turn the ball over and you move the ball well enough that you'll have good field position and can kick some field goals, that probably does beat the Raiders, Cardinals, and Jets minimum.
Yeah. And the other part of it is this. That's true. That definitely happened. Matthew Judon's legit. He's a legitimately very good player.
He's going to set unless he gets hurt, he's going to set a new career high for sacks and break the one he set last year.
100%. I mean, he's only a sack away from that. He might break it next game. He's been fantastic all year long. And even like the Jets game last week, he didn't have a sack, but he was in the backfield constantly. He was forcing Zach Wilson to make bad plays and bad throws. That's the type of guy you need on your team. And he's been consistently good all year long. They needed a guy like this. They needed him to continue to step up and continue to play well, and he's doing exactly that. And you can't ask for more than what he's given them. He's been great. Yeah. And like I say, if you can get that consistent play from the other side from Uche, and if Barmore can come back healthy and push the pocket like he was doing before he got hurt, you're looking at a potentially very good defensive front. Again, they've struggled against the run. They have at times. They didn't today. For whatever reason that was. Could have been the Colts, could have been the Patriots, but they didn't struggle against the run today, which is great. And if you can keep that up, you can win games just on your defense. You can win games just with your defense if you play this way.
Yeah, I looked this up now because I was curious about it. And I wanted to see, because I know that 0-3 Patriots team won a lot of gritty games, did not blow out a lot of opponents. They just made enough plays. The 03 Patriots also went 11 straight games with a turnover. The last 11 games, including the Super Bowl, they turned the ball over. They just turned the opponents over so much. They forced a turnover in every game but one that season. And if this makes you feel better, the Patriots have forced the turnover in every game but one so far. We're at a point, if the defense can keep forcing turnovers and not get gashed against the run like they did against Green Bay, Chicago, and Baltimore, you can fix that. Then the offense can they basically get one freebie a game. I think they can turn it over once and it's gonna be all right as long as it's not like a pick six or something crazy. And that's the quote, because if you're able to do that, if you force 2 turnovers against Buffalo, play disciplined football, and actually like play good defense to go with the 2 turnovers and get a couple of big plays in there, all of a sudden you're in that game.
Right.
Yeah. And that's how the Patriots have won in the past. The team, I think, if they aren't, they're right near being both number 1 in turnovers and turnovers forced.
They were coming into the game, and I know they had another turnover today, which makes it 17.
It goes down to 1-1. So
and they turned them over at 17-17. So I think that's the thing, is that you lead the league in turnovers, but you also lead the league in taking away the ball. So in takeaways as well. And so
that the 03 team had 24 turnovers, but forced 41 of them.
Jesus, that's crazy. 41 is outrageous.
I didn't realize they had multiple games, 4 games where they forced 5 or more turnovers.
That 03 team, I still say that 03-04 team, those are the 2 best teams the Patriots maybe have ever had. They just were unbelievable, just absolutely unbelievable. Obviously, won 21 in a row in that stretch. They were absolutely phenomenal, phenomenal in that.
And
stretch.
we asked how they were gonna. One of our big questions at the start of the season is, how do you replace the ball hawking when you lose J.C. Jackson?
Right.
Well, they're doing it. Jack Jones has been good. Jonathan Jones. Everybody's getting in there. We got McCourty with some. So everybody's pitching in.
And by the way, speaking of Jack Jones, no one's throwing his way. Nobody is throwing. They're not even trying to throw at Jack Jones right now.
They may have actually upgraded the corner position by getting rid of J.C. Jackson and having Jack Jones come in. Yeah, it's
unbelievable.
Like I said, this defense is elite.
Yeah,
when they know what's coming.
Right.
So there's a number of ways you can get there, and you got to have guys that can make plays to get you into those spots. And when you play a bad offense, you're going to know what's coming a lot of the time. They didn't know what was coming against the Bears, and they knew what was coming against Green Bay, but we're down Lawrence Guy and just could not stop the run.
Yes.
Some of the bad performances are excusable, but you have to fix them. They're going to have opportunities to fix them. I think they have the players to fix them down the stretch, those issues. Just got to actually do it.
Right. And Dark Blue Goat's asking if we should have a slice of humble pie for the cornerback position. And here's what I'll say. Here's my argument for myself, okay? I never, and I think I said it at the time, I'm sure the Patriots can replace, maybe not replace one for one. I didn't expect them to find an elite cover corner in the draft right away, which they did. Right. But my thought, my argument with it was always, you have 2 elite players. You gave them away for nothing. Both of them. You got nothing back for either of those guys.
They're getting a compensatory pick for JC at least, which I think will be a 4th.
You're getting a 4th. So you're telling, if you had told me, I'm trading JC Jackson for a 2023 4th round pick. That's not even close to enough, right? That's not even close to enough. Even if you had said 2023 3rd round pick, which is the highest it could have been. You know what I mean?
It's not like you can just find the number 1 PFF graded corner in the country in the 4th round.
I know, which is outrageous. And listen, and listen, this is the thing, right? They did it, right? They figured it out. They drafted the guy, which is great. My argument was always, you can't just let the guys go for nothing. You took Gilmore to the carpet and you wouldn't pay him, and he was pissed at you. And instead of holding him to the end of the season and then letting him walk in free agency too, you traded him and got nothing back. You got nothing back. You got a 6th round pick in 2023.
That whole situation is still so weird, because that's one of the very few instances where somebody has left New England and gone on to play better, or not better, but as well, or well at all somewhere else.
Right.
And I think, I mean, from what we can tell from the outside, it was just differing opinions on the
Yeah,
health
it
part of
was
it.
really bizarre. It was just a
Yeah.
really bizarre situation, and they weren't letting him play. He didn't want to play, and they thought it was a mess. And it
Yeah.
was like, then you traded him, but you got nothing back. It's Stephon Gilmore. He was a year and a half removed from being the defensive player of the year, and you got a 2023 6th-round pick back for him. It was like, what the
Yeah.
hell are we doing? You got
I,
nothing back,
I
and
will.
it was awful.
Yeah, I will say the one way to make up for that, and the area where Bill has gotten criticized, is just missing on the draft.
Right.
And there's an argument right now that 2 of the 5 best, or at least 2 of the 10 best players on this team right now are guys that they got in day 2 or day 3. Jack Jones and Ramondre Stevenson,
It's true.
which certainly you thought like surplus value and just hitting on guys. And now it's just all right. Can Taekwon, like right now it's really your early picks in
Right.
Cole
Right.
Strange, Mac Jones, and to an extent Christian Barmore with the health question
Right.
that are
And Tyquan Thornton.
underperforming the value. And I think Taekwon's fine. Taekwon's still young enough, and because he missed
Correct.
part of it, I'm not going to hammer him too hard on that. But yeah, you can lump him in there as guys who aren't giving you that value. And if those guys play up to what you would expect from their stature, if Mac Jones can be the 15th best quarterback in the NFL, and Baltimore can be a starting caliber defensive tackle, and Cole Strange can be a starting caliber left guard, that helps you a lot.
100%. 100%. If you can get another reliable player, now you're talking about the middle of your offensive line is taken care of, because you're comfortable with Andrews, who admittedly hasn't played great this year, but he's been okay. Onwenu's been your best offensive lineman all year long.
He's really good.
And, if Strange can start playing well, now you say, okay, we don't love our tackles right now, but they can play okay. Trent Brown's decent. And I thought Kajust played well today. So, okay, so Kajust is out there, Brown is out there, and then you have a solid interior offensive line. Now you're working with something. Now you're saying, okay, we got something here. Like, we're not the best offensive line in football, but we're good enough, right? And so that's the thing for me that, like, yeah, if you can do that, that's going to be huge for them. And so, am I happy that they got rid of J.C. Jackson and Stephon Gilmore? No. Am I really happy with the returns that they've gotten so far on Jack Jones? Of course. Am I happy that they have do they have Marcus Jones as well? Absolutely, 100%. Everyone knows I love Marcus Jones. I think we saw a little bit less from him on the defensive side of the football today. Obviously, till the end, when the game was over, he was out there covering Michael Pittman. But he's one of those guys for me that I think he needs a little bit of time to develop defensively, but he can bring you so much on special teams that it doesn't matter. Like, you get enough from him right now as it is. So I'm happy with that. I do think that they are comfortable with all 3 of their corners right now. I thought Miles Bryant played pretty well in the slot today too. They're comfortable with all those outside corners, and they just rotate them. They just rotate them in and out to keep them fresh,
Yeah, and I had said that, I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but I was saying to other people at one point that I liked the cornerback room because I liked the depth. They didn't have the high-end guy, at least at that point. We didn't know what we had in Jack Jones, but it was kind of this. And I mean, that was even when they still had Malcolm Butler, but Jalen Mills is a real NFL cornerback. He's not elite, but he's a real player. Jonathan Jones is like a proven NFL player.
Yep.
Sean Wade had showed upside. Jack Jones had upside. Marcus Jones had upside. Malcolm Butler at that point was like, you don't know what you're getting from him. Miles Bryant is, I think, as good as you can expect from somebody his size and athleticism to actually be in the NFL. And it's like, all right, they're not going to like dominate guys in the air, but they're not like teams' 3rd and 4th options shouldn't beat them. They should be able to be steady. And if they can force turnovers, they're going to be all right.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And so we'll see.
Can I shout out one other thing here on the turnover front? So we're harping on the whole no picks thing from Mac, which obviously is amazing. Huge. That's the first game of the season for him without a pick. First game, I think, since the Jacksonville game last year for him without a pick, if I'm recalling correctly.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
So huge there. Almost more important, no strip sacks.
Yep.
One of the few games we've had this year without a strip sack. So it's a combination of the offensive line doing a little bit better. Especially like, even when they had issues on offense, like they weren't giving up the bad plays. It was only regular bad and not awful. So you can work with that to an extent. You can live with it. And also that's good for Mac. You want to build confidence. Like he didn't get hit as much today. I think 4 sacks. That's still 10 sacks in the last 2 games. That part isn't good, but nothing backbreaking.
Right. Yep. Exactly. It's true. And that again, as we talked about, they're not the best team in the league anymore.
Nope.
You cannot be making those massive plays that go against you. You can't win that way. And so, not committing any of those huge plays was huge for them today. And something that I think is going to benefit them down the road. So we'll see if they can keep it up, and hopefully they can, and they can figure some things out in the bye and come out and play well against the Jets in 2 weeks. But it's a long way to go until then. And right now, you're 5-4. Yeah, you're last place in the division, but you're above 500. You're in a much better spot than you were 2 weeks ago when you were, 3-4, and everyone was looking at this team saying this team sucks. They just lost to the Bears on Monday Night Football. This team's terrible.
This team was 1-3 at one point, and this team
Right.
has gotten in a hole, and it's not the best spot to be in, but this team has been in worse spots. I think obviously we can go back to the 0-1 team as much as we want. They were 5-5 at one point. I think they were 4-5, maybe.
I think that's right.
Yeah, so
it might have been right. Yeah.
Not that I expect this Patriots team to put it all together and win every game after the bye, but if the offensive, like we said, stranger things have happened. If they can put together some of the basics over the bye week and figure a couple things out, then they are within a lucky break or two of playing with any team in the NFL.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And this team, under Belichick, they've done pretty well at getting lucky breaks. They were 5-4 last year.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. So, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully they can get to 10 and then we'll be all set. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But anyways, thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate it. We'll be back later on in the week, midweek sometime. We're going to have a guest this week for sure. And so hopefully we'll have some fun with that and enjoy the rest of your night. And that's pretty much, that wraps it up. And listen, we're heading into the bye over 500. That's all we can ask for. Right. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned with the way this team looked at the beginning of the season. So not perfect right now. Long way to go, but we're doing okay.
Yeah, and hey, this means next Sunday you get one of those relaxing days where you can watch Red Zone on the couch. Or you can use that and get some errands done or some of the stuff you wouldn't usually do. Go to a concert next Sunday.
Red Zone on the couch sounds good to me. So
yeah, that works for me.
But all right, guys. Thanks.